In the world of strange discoveries, few are as jaw-dropping as the story of Kap Dwa, a mummified giant with two heads and a body said to measure an incredible 12 feet tall. This isn't just folklore whispered by firelight. A physical specimen was actually put on public display for decades, drawing stunned reactions from crowds who couldn't believe what they were seeing. The body, leathery and preserved, had two clearly separate heads atop one. It wasn't a costume, a prop, or a hoax in the classic sense. It had structure, muscle, bones. The story begins in the 1600s when Spanish sailors allegedly encountered a terrifying two-headed giant in Patagonia, South America. According to local legend, they captured the being, but not for long. It supposedly died during an escape attempt, and the sailors brought its body to Europe. The mummy made its way through private collections, freak shows, and eventually ended up in a curious little museum in Baltimore. There, it was seen by thousands who swear they witnessed the real thing with their own eyes. Here's where it gets more interesting. Photos exist, not blurry images from old magazines, but actual museum shots of the figure standing upright, towering over any normal person. The arms are outstretched, the heads are slightly tilted, and the details are eerily lifelike. You can clearly see the skin texture, the bone shapes, and the two completely separate neck structures. Mainstream science never formally accepted Kap Dwa as real. It was too weird, too unexplained, too threatening to the standard human history timeline. And yet, it existed, physically, for over 100 years in the public eye. No CGI, no modern tech, just one very real-looking body that seemed to break the rules of biology. Could it have been part of a race of beings that once walked the earth and then vanished without a trace? After all, the Patagonian region has long been linked with tales of giants, and ancient maps from early explorers even marked land of the giants across its borders. In northern Syria, near the ruins of the Ain Dara temple, archaeologists found something strange. Two enormous footprints carved into the stone floor. Each one is about 3 feet long, positioned as if a massive being had stepped directly onto the sacred temple entrance. Unlike the worn-down stone around them, the prints are detailed. Toes, arches, heel impressions, clearly shaped to resemble a human foot, just on a scale far beyond normal. Most scholars say they're symbolic. Maybe they were meant to represent gods, but there's no inscription explaining them, no indication of what figure left them behind. And here's the odd part. They're not part of a design or a scene, they're just there, like someone actually walked through the area. One at the temple's edge, one several feet ahead, as if a being over 20 feet tall had simply taken a step into the temple. Could ancient builders have known something we don't? Were they recreating something they witnessed? No one can say. But these aren't the only giant prints found carved into stone across the ancient world. Something about these foot-shaped impressions keeps repeating in cultures oceans apart. Always precise, always oversized. Maybe they weren't just art, maybe they were memories. Deep beneath the sands of Saqqara, Egypt lies the Serapeum, a network of tunnels containing over 20 granite sarcophagi, each weighing around 70 tons. They're so massive that even with today's machinery, moving one would be a serious challenge. According to mainstream theory, these were burial vaults for sacred bulls. But here's where the story bends. Inside many of these sarcophagi, nothing. Empty chambers, sealed so perfectly you'd think they hadn't been touched in thousands of years. No bulls, no carvings, no offerings, just polished, flawless interior space large enough to hold a being far larger than any man or animal known in ancient Egypt. The granite is so smooth it reflects light like a mirror. This wasn't quick or careless construction, it was high-level craftsmanship far ahead of its time. So what were these giant stone boxes really made for? Some believe they were used by a lost race of beings that lived before pharaohs. Others think the Serapeum was reused by different civilizations, and the real origin is older than Egypt itself. Whatever the truth is, these sarcophagi weren't just functional. They were built with precision and scale that hint at something, or someone, much larger than history is ready to explain. Meet Charles Byrne, also called the Irish Giant. His skeleton stands at over 7 feet 7 inches, and you don't have to imagine it, you can see it. His towering remains are displayed in a London museum right now, next to the skeleton of an average-height man. The difference is shocking. His legs are like pillars. His ribcage alone is bigger than a full-grown adult. And the skull? It's a size you almost never see in real human biology. Byrne wasn't a legend. He was born in Ireland in 1761 and became a sensation during his lifetime. But what's even more fascinating is the genetic story that followed. Decades after his death, researchers traced his condition to a rare gene mutation still present in certain families in Northern Ireland today. That means whatever caused his extreme growth, it hasn't vanished. It's still out there, just hidden. Now here's where the story gets strange. Historical records from the 1800s and early 1900s describe multiple skeletons in Ireland, discovered during roadwork and farming. Some measured over 10 feet tall. Newspaper clippings even printed the photos and measurements, then, silence. Many of these finds were reportedly collected and sent off to museums, and then never seen again. No photos in archives, no displays, no follow-ups. What if Charles Byrne was just one of the last known examples of something far more ancient? Maybe stories of giant warriors in Irish folklore weren't fiction, maybe they were based on people like Byrne, or even larger. The fact that verified remains like his exist, preserved and measurable, adds serious weight to the idea that the line between myth and reality isn't as wide as we thought. In the red sandstone of the Indian subcontinent and parts of the American Southwest, there are deep impressions in solid rock, massive handprints, far larger than a human's. Some are twice the length of a grown man's hand, with each finger clearly defined and pressed with such force that the rock around them bulges. The stone isn't soft clay, it's dense, ancient, and would take an incredible amount of pressure to shape like this. At first glance, these impressions look like art, but get closer and they seem more precise. The depth of the fingers, the spacing, even the palm curvature, it all resembles an actual physical handprint left behind, not just chiseled in. Locals often avoid the area or speak of ancient beings that once roamed the region. Some even believe the handprints were left in a moment of panic or warning, like someone, or something, reached out and left a permanent mark during a cataclysmic event. And there's the kicker. No one knows how they were made. There's no tool evidence, no chisel lines, no leftover markings you'd expect from ancient carving techniques. These impressions are sunken into the stone, as if some massive being literally pushed their hand into the cliff face. How could that be possible? Mainstream archaeology offers few answers. These handprints are either ignored or brushed off as symbolic art, yet no one explains how stone was shaped so precisely without shattering. Were these marks from ancient giants? Could they be fossilized impressions of beings we've never properly studied? Or are they evidence of some forgotten technology capable of shaping stone with force alone? Whatever they are, they challenge everything we think we know about ancient human history. In the 1950s, a team digging in the Euphrates Valley of southeast Turkey stumbled upon something that didn't match the textbooks. A femur bone measuring 47 inches long. That's over 3 feet of solid leg bone, from what would have been a human-like figure standing more than 16 feet tall. This wasn't folklore or an old tale. It was a real, measurable artifact documented by researchers and photographed next to a modern leg bone for comparison. The size difference was shocking. The find was so out of place that it raised questions instantly. If even a few such beings had existed, they would have changed the way we think about early humanity, about biology, evolution, even our place in history. The region is rich in ancient structures and ruins, many of which feature oversized doorways and staircases. Were they built for people with legs that long? What's even stranger is how quiet things got after the discovery. The bone reportedly ended up in a museum archive, but it's not on display. Very few follow-up studies were released. It just faded away, like it wasn't supposed to spark more questions. But the photos exist, and the proportions speak for themselves. If that femur belonged to a real human ancestor, then we've been looking at human history through a very small lens. High in the granite cliffs near Mpuluzi in South Africa, there's a single footprint that looks like it was pressed into the rock by an enormous bare foot, 4 feet long, with clear toe shapes and a rounded heel. The most bizarre part? The rock is over 200 million years old. That's not a number thrown around casually. Geologists who've studied the formation agree on the age of the granite. It shouldn't be possible for anything to leave a fresh footprint in it. Locals call it God's footprint. Others say it's the mark of a being from another age, one lost to time or erased from records. The impression is tilted at an angle, suggesting the being was stepping upward on a slope, like it had been moving through the cliffs. There's no obvious chisel work, no sign that it was carved. It simply exists, embedded in stone like a fossil, but with no skeletal remains nearby. Skeptics dismiss it as erosion or coincidence. But the shape is oddly perfect, with a foot arch, toe lengths, and spacing that looks human. Except no human foot comes close to that size. If real, this footprint could be the remnant of a race that predates everything we know. One with strength, size, and presence beyond any early civilization. And for now it's just sitting there in the mountains, with no clear explanation at all. In the wilds of Queensland, Australia, researcher Rex Gilroy made a find that still baffles experts. Fossilized molars believed to be from a humanoid being, but 3 times the size of an average human tooth. These weren't animal teeth. They matched the human shape and structure perfectly. Roots, enamel layers, and all. But they were simply too big for any known species of hominid. Gilroy claimed they were part of what he called the mega race, a group of prehistoric giants he believed once roamed the Australian continent. His collection includes jaw fragments and other oversized bones, all showing the same story human-like beings who were absolutely massive in scale. The teeth are among the most compelling because they're biologically specific. You can't mistake a molar that large for anything else. It was meant for chewing. The only question is, for who? Despite the skepticism, the teeth have been photographed and compared with modern dental samples. The differences aren't slight, they're undeniable. These are not deformities or animal bones mistaken for human. If these remains are real, then some chapter of ancient prehistory is missing, one where giant humans lived, thrived, and disappeared without a clear trace. Yet their teeth, strong and fossilized, still speak louder than speculation ever could. Scattered across Easter Island are nearly 1,000 moai statues, some standing over 30 feet tall and weighing up to 82 tons. Carved from volcanic rock, these enormous stone figures were created by the Rapa Nui people centuries ago, but no one knows why they made them so big. The moai aren't just statues, they're icons of something bigger, something ancient. Many researchers say they represent ancestors, tribal leaders, or spiritual guardians. But that doesn't explain the scale. Why build them taller than any living man? Here's where it gets interesting. Some local legends speak of giants who walked the island long before the Rapa Nui arrived. Stories tell of beings with incredible strength, helping shape the land and raise the statues. These tales were dismissed for years, until excavations revealed that many moai actually have full torsos buried underground, making them even taller than we thought. The builders clearly wanted to create something towering, intimidating, almost lifelike. Now take a look at this image. Massive, spiked humanoid figures rising from the ocean while smaller beings stand in awe on the shore. It's not a historical photograph, but it does capture something powerful. A visual metaphor for ancient memories passed down through generations. Could the moai have been based on real encounters with beings like this? If giant figures once appeared on these shores, it would make perfect sense for islanders to immortalize them in stone. And if those encounters faded into myth, the statues might be the only remaining clue. The carving techniques used to shape the moai are still debated. Moving them across the island, some weighing more than a Boeing 737 engine, remains a mystery. Some suggest lost technology, others believe knowledge was passed down from an earlier, forgotten civilization. Either way, the statues are more than artwork. They're messages from a past we haven't fully uncovered, possibly a past where giants weren't fiction, but memory. History remembers emperors as powerful, commanding figures, but Maximinus Thrax may have been something else entirely. Described in Roman sources as over 8 feet tall, he was a real emperor who ruled the Roman Empire from 235 to 238 AD. Unlike many rulers who came from noble bloodlines, Maximinus rose from humble origins, first gaining attention simply because of his massive size and strength. Ancient texts say he could crush stones in his hands and drink from barrels like cups. Details often dismissed as exaggeration, yet consistently repeated across multiple Roman accounts. Busts and statues from his reign show a man with unusually large features and a powerful build. Coins from the era bear his image, and written records from historians like Herodian confirm his massive stature wasn't just legend. He wasn't a myth. He ran an empire, and terrified his enemies not just with armies but by standing like a giant among men. Could Maximinus have carried a genetic trait linked to ancient giants? It's not out of the question. His height was considered unnatural, even by the standards of the time. The Roman world knew tall warriors, but nothing like him. If one man like Thrax rose to power in such a physically dominant way, it might hint at remnants of something even older. A lineage of beings whose size gave them influence, fear, and perhaps even a place in early myth. Forget myth for a moment. Gigantopithecus was real, a massive primate that once roamed the forests of Southeast Asia. Based on fossilized jaws and teeth, scientists estimate it stood up to 10 feet tall and weighed over 1,000 pounds. This wasn't a creature from ancient fables. It lived alongside early humans, surviving until around 300,000 years ago. Its teeth are enormous, 3 times the size of a human's, and its jawbones are thick enough to crush bamboo. Fossils have been found in caves in China, India, and Vietnam, and they all point to one fact: this species was built for power. The mystery is, we've never found a full skeleton. All we have are fragments, enough to confirm it existed, but not enough to fully picture it. Some researchers believe Gigantopithecus may have been the source of ancient legends, the Yeti, Bigfoot, or the Rakshasa of Hindu myth. If early humans encountered this creature, the memory of its sheer size could have easily evolved into tales of forest giants and mountain guardians. What's more, its extinction date isn't that far off in evolutionary terms. It's possible that pockets of them survived much longer than we think, leaving behind footprints and fear in the minds of early humans. It might not have been human, but it was a giant, and it walked the same earth we do. In the early 1960s, deep in the rainforests of Ecuador, an expedition led by Father Carlos Vaca, a priest with a passion for archaeology, uncovered something that looked like it belonged in another world. Among the items retrieved were pieces of a humanoid skeleton estimated to be nearly 15 feet tall. The bones were dense, heavy, and unusually large, far beyond normal proportions. The remains were stored for decades in a private collection, protected by the priest himself. Only a few photos exist, but the images show a femur nearly the length of a full-grown adult's torso. Medical experts brought in to examine the bones confirmed they were biological, and definitely not from any animal species known in that region. They looked human, just massive. The most compelling part? The discovery happened near Cuenca, an area with a long tradition of legends about ancient giants. Local stories passed down for centuries describe beings that ruled the highlands before being wiped out in a mysterious flood. The bones found by Father Vaca matched those stories, not just in size, but in exact location. After his passing, the skeleton reportedly vanished. Standing guard over the ruins of Tula, the ancient capital of the Toltec civilization in central Mexico, are 4 towering statues known as the Atlantean figures. Each one rises over 15 feet high, carved from volcanic stone, and armed with what look like futuristic weapons and chest armor. The detail is stunning, but the question has always been, who were they modeled after? Mainstream archaeology says they're symbolic, stylized depictions of Toltec warriors. But that explanation hits a wall when you realize just how oversized these figures are compared to the average Toltec person. Why portray their heroes with such extreme proportions? These aren't decorative carvings. They were placed in formation, like a squad of sentinels watching over the city. And here's something strange. Similar giant warrior statues appear across Mesoamerican cultures. From the Olmecs to the Maya, we see repeated depictions of massive humanoid figures often holding weapons or staffs, staring straight ahead. Were they just gods, or were they based on something or someone real? Maybe these were not imaginary deities but ancestral giants remembered and carved in stone to honor their role in building the cities we now uncover piece by piece. In Baalbek, Lebanon, there's a site that shouldn't exist. The Temple of Jupiter, built thousands of years ago, sits on a foundation of some of the largest stones ever quarried by human hands. The biggest of them, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighs over 1,200 tons. That's more than 2 fully loaded Boeing 747s. And here's the kicker. It was moved into place with such precision that you couldn't slip a razor blade between the seams. No one really knows how the builders pulled it off. Even with today's cranes and trucks, we'd struggle to move stones that size, let alone stack them perfectly. Some say it was done with ramps and ropes. Others argue that's impossible due to the sheer weight. The layout of the blocks and their placement suggest advanced techniques, or maybe advanced strength. Local legends speak of giants. The Phoenicians, Greeks, and Romans all reused the site, but none of them claim to have built the base. Some scholars believe the platform was already there, waiting. Could the original builders have been something more? A race of oversized beings with knowledge and power that has long since disappeared? The silence from mainstream academia on this puzzle just makes the mystery louder. In the dry hills of Nevada, a cave near Lovelock has sparked one of the strangest archaeological mysteries in North America. Back in the early 1900s, guano miners digging through the cave floor uncovered a layer of human remains and ancient artifacts. Among them were skeletal remains of unusually large individuals, some said to be over 8 feet tall, with skulls that were longer and more robust than normal. Even more bizarre, many had remnants of red hair. The local Paiute tribe had long told stories of a race of red-haired giants, the Siteka, who lived in the region and were eventually wiped out in a legendary battle. According to oral history, the last of these giants were trapped in a cave and burned alive. Mainstream historians dismissed the tale as myth until the bones surfaced. Archaeologists did officially excavate the cave in 1912, and thousands of artifacts were recovered: baskets, sandals, tools. But the large skeletons were quietly moved or vanished from records. Some pieces ended up in small museums, but the tallest remains? Gone. The story never got a proper follow-up, and many now believe evidence of the giants was intentionally buried, both literally and historically. In the Narmada Valley of central India, archaeologists have discovered tools that simply don't fit in with the rest of the known record. Stone axes, hammers, and blades that are far too large and heavy for an average-sized human to use. Some of these tools measure over 18 inches long and weigh as much as 20 pounds. They're not ceremonial, they show wear from repeated use. Mainstream archaeologists say they were made by early humans with larger hands or stronger builds. But how much larger are we talking? These tools suggest hands almost twice the size of ours, and strength that doesn't match any known hominin species from the region. So who used them? Were they made for giants? Or could they be leftovers from an ancient civilization we've yet to discover? One that didn't leave behind bones, only tools too big to ignore. It is still unknown. That's about it. Do you believe that giants really lived on our planet? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.